All right, so we have the next set of projects up on the board. I did not show you yesterday. We're going to look at it today. So if you could watch up in front. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. I'm going to walk through these projects so you can see what we're working with and what we're looking at. These are all going to be in P5JS. We are working in that application, the web editor online today and for the next week and a day or so. The 5 projects are here. I have some example code that I'm going to post to Google Classroom, so you guys will have access to that. But for the most part, we're looking at these 5 projects. Triforce, have you ever seen Zelda? You guys have played Zelda before. In Zelda, they have the Triforce. It looks like this. What we're looking for is developing 3 triangles that look just exactly like this. And your mouse pointer, like the tip of your mouse pointer, is going to be right in the center of the bottom of the very first triangle. So it's going to be right down in this area. Last time I had people that we did the 4 square thing, and it had the 4 square was like off to the side, and then everything was kind of hanging down below it, or at the bottom right, and everything was up to the top. We want to be right in the middle of this one, so you're right here in the center of these. So you're going to have to do develop a triangle. I think they put, whoops, I didn't do that. There we go. I'm going to be over here on this one. Wrong program. I'll probably just kick out of that. So the Triforce, we've been working with JavaScript for a while now, and so this is all that P5 Processing.js. The Triforce, my suggestion is to create one triangle and move it to exactly where it needs to be, and then work with developing another triangle and another triangle, and making the offsets until they're exactly where they need to be. You'll notice that the offsets will be the same at the bottom 2. They'll just be moved to the left or to the right, so negative or positive, off of the mouse X variable. Excuse me. I have a piece of demo code that I'm going to upload as well for that one, but you can start by making triangles and going from there. The second project is a restaurant menu, and what we're looking at here is developing something similar to the image up in the front, where it has a title. You're going to be working with 3 categories, and I have a list of category potentials there. So you have appetizers, drinks, main course, burgers, desserts, etc. There's lots of different stuff you could do. You're going to have 3 items, and each of those is going to have a price per category. So if I have like a Western burger, I'll have that, and then so we're looking at items. So you're going to come up with 3 different items, and then you're going to have a series of dots that lead from the item over to the price. The price should be on the right-hand side. So it's going to look very much like a menu. And this is all using text size, fill, and stroke. And there's some lines in there to separate different categories. And the items, we're going to add a picture. You're going to download a picture from Google and then add that to your project, and then link that asset into the program. So you'll have an actual image of like a burger on a plate, some kind of something that makes you hungry. Can't talk. Calculator number 1. You're going to use, I have some example code. This one works with input boxes and buttons, and I'll show you that. I have that project right here. P5JS.org. We're going to click on the editor, and you can actually follow the link that's up there. It's editor.p5js.org. Make sure you log in. You logged in last time, and you were able to save your projects in there. You can see that it defaults. It gives me my name up here in the top right corner. I have my default colors, the settings as far as the the text size is concerned and the color settings. And if I go File, Open, you're going to see a number of different projects that I've created. And calculator number 1 is one that I have here. I have the code for this. For the most part, you're going to have it has some blanks to it, so you'll have to fill in some information here and there. But this program right here, it has some variables, 2 numbers, and a button declared at the top. And then inside the function, it creates an input box. And the input box is going to have a set position. You're going to create another input box called number 2 that has a position. You're going to create a button following these directions that's going to say Submit on it. And then when the button is pressed, it's going to run the calculate function, and then underneath that you have some text for the first number and the second number, so it has some labels that are going to show up on the screen as well. When I hit play, you can see that the labels are right here, the number input boxes are right here. Number 1, number 2. If I press a number 1, a number in the first box, like 2 and 3, and hit submit, it's going to add and show me 5. It adds those together. So calculate, every time I press the submit button, if I adjust this thing to something else, 5, and hit submit, it's going to perform that calculation. Sorry, you guys can't see that at all. Let's zoom in. There we go. So every time I do the change a number here and hit submit, it's going to do the calculation here. So the code for this, I have some local variables being defined in here, and this is using whatever the value is inside of the num1 box, the num1 input value. It's going to store that into a variable called number 1, and whatever the value is in the number 2 input box, it's going to store it into the variable number 2, and then number 3, very generic variable definitions here. Remember, I have to use the plus in the front because any value entered into an inbox or an input box is a string, and so I have to use the unary plus here to turn it from a string into a number. And so when I do that, number 1 gets turned into whatever value the number 1 is, and number 2 turns into whatever value number 2 is. And then my answer right here is going to say addition and then number 3. And so what I have you doing in the example, let's jump back over there. There we go. In the project list here, excuse me. So kick back out. So inside this example, I have it where my example code, I have 2 input boxes, a submit button. They enter 2 numbers. I only supplied 1 answer. I want you to supply 4 answers. So inside here, when they hit submit, it should say addition 8, subtraction whatever, multiplication whatever, division whatever. So you're going to have 4 different answers here. Okay? Make sense? All right, so that's that one. That's just editing some of this stuff down here. So you have to come up with new variable definitions and then do different things with the numbers that way. The next one, you're going to reuse this code. So you're going to save the project as something else. And in this case, what you're going to do, let me see, let's open calculator 2. You're going to have 4 buttons. And I have one that has just one of these buttons as the demo code for you. And this one, when you run, it does the same thing. It has first number, 3, second number, 4. If I hit addition, it should add those two together. If I subtract, it should say subtraction, -1. If I multiply, it should say multiplication, 12. Divide, it should say division, 0.75. So you're giving all of the answers. So every time you press a button, it should give you the correct result, and then whatever it was doing, whatever button you pressed, it should say the same thing here. So you're just reusing that code. You're just creating multiple buttons. Right. And this one, I have this. I guess I forgot to. Yep. And so I have the example code for this one. You just have to change it there. So if I hit 3, because I made some changes, if I hit subtract, it's going to say subtraction, -1. Down here, it still says addition because I just copied the code and changed the operator. Multiplication, something like that. 3 and 4, multiplication, subtraction, addition. I'd finish the last one for division. So you can see the calc mult is my function, and so I have a button up here. Whenever I press button 4 for divide, it's going to run the mouse. When the mouse is pressed, when the button is pressed on the mouse, it's going to run on that specific button. It's going to run this function called calc_div, and that is going to run whatever function down here is called calc_div. Right there, takes those numbers, does the division. It reposts the label, and then also does the label over here. So I have some demo code for you for this one as well. So you'll be able to see one button created, and then you just have to create the other buttons for that project. The last project we're looking at is a bouncing ball, and I have some demo code for this as well. It is not complete, so you're going to have to complete it and work with the code that's there, kind of modify some things, and you're making one that is a bouncing ball. And I have some extra code in this project because I was developing something else, trying to make it bounce off of a paddle. Still working on that part of it, but basically we have a location X and Y. That's the start location for our ball. It's going to start right in the middle. The speed in the X direction is a -1.2, which means it's going to go to the left. Speed in the Y direction is a -2.5, which means it's going to go up. So it's going to go up and left at every time it refreshes this many pixels. So it's going to give it some animation. I set up the canvas, which is 400 by 400. I'm going to draw the background. I draw an ellipse, so I have some comments here that give you some information about what's going on. I draw an ellipse at the location of X and Y, and the ellipse or circle is 20 by 20, so it's a 20 radius circle. A 20 diameter circle? I think it's 20 diameter. And down here, this is when it's going to change the direction. If the location is less than 0, which means it's at the left side, or no, on the X, yeah, it's at the left side, or if it's greater than the width, which means that it's on the right side, it's going to change the speed. So whatever that speed is, it's going to multiply it by a -1. And what that does, that changes the speed. So if the speed originally was 2 and it multiplies it by -1, now it's -2. So it's going the opposite direction. So basically it's changing how it's adding the location, or adding to the location. So every time it hits a wall, either the left side or the right side in the X direction, it's going to multiply it times the -1, which effectively changes that direction to the positive. Same thing with y. When it hits the top or the bottom, it's going to multiply it by -1 and change the speed that way. And then here's the animation part, where it takes the location of the x plus the speed of x. Every time it refreshes, it's doing that, and the location of y plus the speed of y. And right now I just have it with the text of location x and y, and it's going to be sitting right there, so I can see what those locations are. I tried to do some speed, so if it hit something, it would randomize the speed, and it was not acting like I wanted it to. But anyway, when this project runs, with all the extra stuff commented out, you can see here's you can tell the speed, it's going positive and negative depending on what it's hitting, and the ball's just bouncing off. Anyway, so this is the bouncing ball one. I have some demo code for this. It's pretty much the same code, but you're going to create this. And then what you're going to add to this is you're going to add your paddle, so that when we add our paddle to this, I don't think I actually have heartbreaking smartphone. Looks like you forgot to save this the other day. That's funny. I had the game paddle that we created last time. Looks like this, where you have the thing bounces back and forth. The ball is not going to bounce off of this yet, so we don't have it where it's going to actually have any interaction with the paddle. But I want you to copy the code for the paddle. So if I come down here and I copy this is my paddle code. Copy. And then if I go back over to the bouncing ball one, and down here at the bottom someplace before it finishes, in here I guess, paste, save, yep, save, there it is, plus or play. Now it goes right on through it, but it's not supposed to stop yet. So, but eventually we'll do it where when the ball interacts with the paddle, it'll bounce off that paddle and go someplace else. So let's do this. There we go. Cool. A little bit better. Anyway, that's our set of projects. You're making these 5: Triforce, the restaurant menu, calculator 1, calculator 2, and the bouncing ball. And it'll have 4 walls to bounce off of. And like I said, I have a couple of short code snippets that you can use to make it work. And then you're going to have to modify some things. So you're going to have to add extra functions in the calculators. The restaurant, I don't have any example code for. I just have that picture up there as the guideline. I do have a short little tutorial on how to insert a picture into the menu. But for right now, I want you to work on just setting up the text size, the lines, all that fun stuff. Triforce is just a shapes and alignment, shapes and offset project. So, anybody have any questions on this? No? All right. So that's our project. You should find them in Classroom right here. And I'm going to be adding some extra stuff into this, so you'll see the sample code for each of the different projects on here in a minute. All right, good luck.